Please support Human Appeal.
Please support humanappeal.org.uk.
When I was 9, I got molested by a guy with Down syndrome.
Don't laugh, Brennan.
I'm not laughing.
Some moments demand silence. Yet somehow, that's when people lose it the most. From live broadcasts to emotional interviews, there are times when laughter shows up at the absolute worst possible second. And once it starts, there's no turning back. These aren't harmless chuckles either. One unexpected reaction was so disastrous that it shut down an entire show. Another happened during a moment so serious that viewers were left stunned, confused, and speechless. Why did people laugh? What pushed them over the edge? And how far did things spiral afterward? Let's find out. Charity appeal crumbles into laughter. The charity appeal blooper occurred during what was intended to be a sincere, emotionally grounded fundraising message. The presenter's responsibility was simple: deliver a clear plea to support Human Appeal and direct viewers to the organization's website, humanappeal.org.uk. However, as soon as he began speaking, he struggled to maintain a serious expression. The line itself was straightforward. Please. Support humanappeal.org.uk. Yet, for reasons even he couldn't control, he kept stumbling over the delivery. Each attempt to speak the website name triggered an involuntary smile, which quickly escalated into suppressed laughter. However much he tried to gain his composure, the situation gradually worsened. Each time he restarted, he got either another crack in his voice or an uncontrollable smirk as a response. It was not only his co-presenters, but also the production crew who could be heard trying not to laugh, and this was the very thing that increased the pressure even more. A moment that was meant to evoke empathy and kindness turned out to be a sequence of mischiefs, with the speaker visibly struggling to take over the message again. The presenter's attempts at keeping a straight face by tightening his lips, pausing between words, and deep breathing were of absolutely no use at all. The blunder displayed how easily seriousness could be wounded during live broadcasts. Even a minor mistake might alter the whole emotional atmosphere of a fundraising appeal. The video lost the intention of being compassionately sympathetic towards the needy, and instead turned out to be funny in an unintended way. If this caught you off guard, the next clip will hit you even harder. A sensitive interview goes awry. The Oxford, Michigan school shooting coverage shifted rapidly from breaking news to an emotionally chaotic broadcast that highlighted how unpredictable live interviews can become. Authorities reported that a 15-year-old student was charged as an adult with 4 counts of first-degree slaying, multiple assault and weapons charges, and an unusually rare count of terrorism causing death. As the media attempted to document the tragic aftermath, reporters met with survivors and grieving families who were still struggling to process what had happened. One of the central interviews focused on the Pittman family and Tate Meyer, a young victim remembered by his friend Devon, who described Tate as one of the best people he had ever known, aside from his father and God. The tone of the discussion changed only when the host suddenly told Devon that another hospital-bound classmate had just died. While Devon reminisced about Tate's warm-heartedness, their jokes and games, the atmosphere was serious throughout. The situation required delicacy, but the humor wiped out the tension, as it was not the audience's surprise that they were lost in the sounds, and many were speculating whether it was from the sadness or from the nervous laughter, a confession nobody expected. The comedian's story about being molested by a man with Down syndrome became one of the most uncomfortable yet strangely comedic moments. He explained that when he was 9 years old, he was repeatedly approached and molested over the course of an entire summer. The subject was undeniably serious, and he attempted to deliver it with honesty. However, as soon as he revealed the detail about the man having Down syndrome, his friend Brandon immediately struggled to contain his laughter. The comedian noticed and confronted him, asking, "Why'd you laugh?" which only made the moment even more tense and absurd. In his attempt to regain power over the situation, he cautioned Brandon not to smile or laugh, or else he would quit the narration. He tried to begin anew, but each trial was defeated by their increasing mirth. A combination of the surprise confession, the discomfort of the situation, and the intimacy between the two made it almost impossible for them to be serious at all. The comedian elaborated, saying the meeting took place every day for a summer, which unknowingly sharpened the comedic timing even more, although the context was grim. The exchange demonstrated that laughter can come involuntarily during yelling and screaming and during traumatic conversations taking place. Composure tested during honor ceremony. The honor ceremony involving Ryan and President Obama began as a standard, solemn tribute to extraordinary bravery. Ryan had displayed remarkable valor in combat, shielding wounded comrades, carrying unexploded missiles with his bare hands, and continuing to fight through severe injuries. The event was meant to honor these heroic actions and highlight the sacrifices made by his entire team during a brutal enemy assault. The atmosphere was dignified, respectful, and focused on commemorating the courage that defined their service. However, the tone unexpectedly shifted when President Obama delivered a particular line meant to describe the intensity of the attack. While recounting the moment the enemy struck their tiny post, Obama said, "Ryan and his team were being pounded." Although the description was precise in terms of the violence and the attack, it unintentionally had a double meaning. This surprised Ryan, and the first thing he did was to give a barely held-in laugh. His face transformed very quickly as he fought to keep his cool during a national broadcast ceremony. That very moment, which consisted of the seriousness of the situation and the inadvertent humor, was awkward but at the same time unforgettable. The audience was quick to catch the reaction of Ryan, and it was soon all over the internet. Even though the line was supposed to emphasize the turmoil and peril of the war, its accidental humorous aspect momentarily overshadowed the morning of the ceremony, when stage fright takes control. The student presentation mishap unfolded during what was supposed to be a simple classroom assignment, explaining his professional dream of becoming a race car pilot. At first, he approached the task with confidence, standing before his classmates and beginning his introduction. However, almost immediately, nerves took over. As he tried to say, "Today I will tell you about my professional dream," he stumbled over his words. His hesitation grew more noticeable when he attempted to explain why being a race car pilot was great, accidentally saying "car pot," which only heightened the embarrassment and made it harder for him to maintain composure. Each attempt to continue the presentation became more difficult as laughter from the class increased the pressure. He tried to reset and start again, but every restart led to more stuttering, misplaced pauses, and accidental humor. His intended seriousness clashed with the uncontrollable cracking in his voice and made the moment even more awkward. Although he wanted to give a serious and thoughtful explanation, he got caught in a vicious circle of mispronunciations and nervous giggles. The more he apologized and began to correct himself, the more the shock escalated. His pauses became longer, and the class felt his difficulty, which only increased the tension. In the end, the presentation was more about his having to struggle for composure than about his dream. The moment was certainly uncomfortable, but it was also very human. The majority of people have had the same experience, the stress of public speaking and the annoyance when nerves spoil the talk. Unexpected chaos in the courtroom. The dog and cat court case centered around an incident that became both bizarre and unintentionally comedic. A couple took their neighbor to court after discovering their dog in what they described as an uncompromising position with their cat. The event unfolded when the owner walked down the corridor and noticed the door slightly ajar. Hearing strange noises, whimpering, growling, and other unsettling sounds, he peeked inside, unsure of what he would find. What he saw was his neighbor's dog positioned over his cat in a way that deeply disturbed him. The situation left the couple shocked and convinced that the dog had traumatized their pet. The cat, as per its owners, went through a very hard time and even took medication for anxiety and depression eventually. The owners were not asking for money. All they were asking for was a genuine, heartfelt apology from the owner of the dog. Even though the couple was very serious about the emotional damage their cat suffered, there was a surprising turn of events in the court, and it became a comical situation. When the defendant tried to apologize, he burst into laughter again and again, and hence couldn't maintain a serious expression. His laughing uncontrollably only added to the couple's annoyance. They said the case was not funny at all, on the contrary, but the more they tried to make him aware of their grief, the harder it became for him to get his act together. Therapy session. The therapy session centered on a man who came seeking help for a fear he considered deeply embarrassing and not manly. He struggled to open up at first, admitting that most people fear things like losing loved ones or facing life-changing responsibilities. Compared to those serious concerns, his own fear felt childish. When the therapist encouraged him to share, he hesitated, repeatedly asking the therapist not to laugh. The tension in the room grew as he tried to maintain seriousness, clearly uncomfortable with what he was about to reveal. Once he had finally revealed his secret, the man said, "I'm scared to death of clowns, dude." And the whole thing turned into unintentional comedy. The therapist, who had vowed not to laugh, couldn't help himself. His reaction triggered a series of laughs that destroyed the seriousness of the session. The patient, who had been very sincere in his presentation of the fear, suddenly found himself torn between being frustrated and being amused. The difference between the tension and the actual confession made the whole thing even more funny. The therapist was still laughing, and the patient was telling him that he had made a specific request for understanding and support. Instead of receiving comfort, he was met with uncontrollable chuckling. This only made it more awkward to discuss fears that society usually considers to be irrational or childish. Keep your focus. Our next moment shows just how quickly things can slip out of control. Karate interview. Incident. The karate interview incident began with what was supposed to be a straightforward conversation about a young martial artist's experiences and training. The interviewer asked whether he had ever needed to use karate to defend himself or someone else. The boy answered earnestly, explaining that there was one time at a supermarket when a girl was being robbed by a big guy. He described how the noble thing to do was to stop the man and save her. However, before he could finish, the interviewer suddenly broke into laughter. Something in the boy's serious delivery, tone, or phrasing triggered the interviewer, and he was unable to maintain professionalism. The boy's endeavors to elucidate the situation were cut short by the humorous impersonation of the interviewer, who, after every apology, still couldn't manage to suppress himself. His laughter overwhelmed the whole interview process. Thus, the young karate student had to speak amidst frequent interruptions. The moment turned out to be quite awkward, more so with the boy's serious and composed demeanor, while the adult who was interviewing him was finding it hard to regain control. The imbalance in the dynamic rendered the situation totally comical. However, the boy did not stop with his answers. He just shifted his focus from the robbery tale to the difficulties conquered during martial arts training. The boy mentioned that one of the most challenging things regarding karate was to keep one's mind steady and be patient. It was very demanding in terms of time practicing, discipline, and mental fortitude, qualities he was demonstrating far better than the interviewer did at that moment. News anchor breaks mid-report. The news anchor laughing at the slaying suspect headline occurred during what was supposed to be a serious and straightforward report on a disturbing criminal case. The segment focused on Stephen Grant, a Michigan man accused of slaying and dismembering his wife, Terilyn Grant. Authorities had discovered a torso and additional body parts believed to belong to her, both inside and near the family home. Police had tracked Stephen Grant down in Michigan's Wilderness State Park, more than 400 miles from his suburban Detroit residence, before airlifting him to a hospital. The report contained graphic and unsettling details, demanding a solemn tone from the anchor delivering the news. Nevertheless, the atmosphere of the studio altered entirely when the suspect's picture came up on the screen. The main reason for the sudden laughing of the anchor was very mysterious, probably due to the unexpected visual, the timing, a momentary lapse in composure of the anchor, among others. His reaction came right away and was a reflection of the seriousness that the story demanded. The anchor's laughter was so loud that it literally broke the ice in the studio, and the horrific details were still present in the background, and thus creating an over-the-top and unprofessional moment on the air. The anchor did his best to control himself, but the laughter kept breaking in the transmission. Whenever he tried to go on with the report, he found it hard to keep a straight face. The crew at the back appeared to be quiet and did not give any audible cues to him. Thus, he was left completely on his own, trying to get the stability back in the middle of the segment. TV host burping on air. The TV host burping on air became one of the most unexpectedly hilarious moments in live broadcasting. During what seemed like a routine segment, the host prepared to take a call from a viewer in Madisonville, Kentucky. Everything was completely normal until, just before the call connected, he suddenly let out a loud burp directly into the microphone. The moment stunned him, and instead of recovering professionally, he instantly burst into uncontrollable laughter. Within seconds, the entire segment fell apart. The laughter only increased as he made attempts to excuse himself and take control of the situation again. His first word was always drowned by another hysterical guffaw, which rendered him incapable of even mentioning the caller's name. The caller, Justin, on the other hand, was there quietly, just wanting to know something about spam emails. However, each time Justin opened his mouth, the host's laughter would burst forth again. Hence, he would be forced to keep silent. The co-host was no better, suffering by constantly asking him if he needed help, and at the same time not being able to contain his laughter. A phrase that won't come out. The Filipino man struggling with the English phrase created one of the most charming and unintentionally funny moments. Standing confidently, he attempted to deliver a motivational message to his fellow Filipinos. The truth will set you free. But as soon as he began speaking, the words tangled together, and he accidentally said, "The truth will set be free." Realizing his mistake instantly, he burst into laughter he couldn't control. His accented English, paired with the pressure of speaking on camera, made the simple phrase surprisingly tough to correct. When he would attempt once more, the hysterics just burst around him. His efforts not only did not get better, but were also more tangled, and the simple line was turned into an unanticipated, laughable problem. The instant demonstrated how even minor English phrases could become confusing in stressful situations, especially for the latter speakers trying to be confident. His effort to maintain a serious look made things even more hilarious, as he went through the cycle of laughing, apologizing, and attempting to restart the dialogue. An interview that falls apart. The interview about medical procedures gone wrong began like any standard program, but one crucial mistake doomed it from the start. The host skipped the usual pre-show meeting with the guests, a routine step meant to build rapport and understand their backgrounds. Because of this, he walked into the live segment completely unaware that one guest had severe vocal cord damage. The moment the man started talking, the host was completely surprised by the strange sound of his voice. The tone, which was unexpected, made the host react involuntarily, and he tried hard to keep his laughter in. Instead of being professional, he broke down, and this caused immediate discomfort to the guest, the audience, and everyone watching at home. Things got worse when the guest moved the topic of discussion to the impact of his condition on his intimate life. The combination of the delicate subject, the strange voice, and the already tense atmosphere overwhelmed the host. Each recovery attempt resulted in more badly timed laughter, thus turning serious moments into painfully awkward ones. Keep your composure because the next scene takes things to an entirely different extreme. Police Academy Chicken Test. The Police Academy Chicken Test is one of the most notorious challenges recruits must face, created specifically to test how well they can maintain composure under pressure. The rule is simple but ruthless. If a recruit smiles or laughs, they must immediately drop and do push-ups. What makes the test so difficult isn't the physical punishment, but the awkward and intentionally absurd scenarios designed to push their limits. In the clip, the instructor stands stone-faced in front of the trainees, watching closely for even the slightest crack in expression. The tension is thick, and everyone is desperately trying to stay serious. But the efforts made do not get the recruits anywhere, as most of them fail within seconds. Once there is a laugh from somebody, the whole group soon will not be able to control themselves. At every mistake, the instructor yells, "Drop!" and the recruits keep falling to the ground, one after another. The same action takes place in a loop without stopping, and thus a simple exercise gets transformed into a chaotic cycle of laughter and tiredness. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, drop a comment, and hit that subscribe button for more moments just like these. And don't go anywhere. There's another video on your screen right now that you won't want to miss. Click it, and I'll see you there.